broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Poverty in your life is just about to die. The Parish Development Model, PDM, is here to transform your life.
Now me, Mariza, a villager with one goat. How can I even benefit from this so-called PDM?
Mariza.
What, neighbor?
Mariza, stop complaining. I have overheard you complaining about the Parish Development Model money. But what you need to know, everyone who earns below 1 million shilling per year like you can benefit from PDM.
Tell me how.
What you need to do is simply join an enterprise group of other goat keepers in our village. Then our LC chairperson, the one you know, will guide you on how to register your enterprise. Our vegetable growing group is already registered.
Really?
Yes.
Let me do it now.
Just do it now.
Thanks, neighbor, for opening my eyes about PDM.
You're welcome.
Let me even hurry and go to the chairman. Where are my shoes?
You hurry now. The Parish Development Model is an initiative of the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform the lives of all Ugandans for the better. PDM, My Parish, My Development, My Life. UBC Radios, inspiring Uganda.
PDM.
This is UBC Radio.
The Education Forum program. Education Forum, a platform for trends and developments in the education sector. We are your reference and reliable source of information. The Education Forum, right here on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
A family is a group of one or more parents and their children living together as a unit. Sometimes, this unit extends beyond the nuclear family to include relatives and grandparents. Every Tuesday night at 10:15 p.m., UBC Radio brings you The Family, a radio show that navigates through family affairs for peace, harmony, and unity. Here on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody should. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody should. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda. Welcome to Ground Zero Season 2, a show that brings you in-depth discussion ranging from politics, health, finance, sports, and so much more. Ground Zero Season 2.
UBC Radio, live and clear on 4 radio stations covering entire Uganda. Good morning to you, the people of Uganda, especially those who are part of us from the other side of radio. I'm Pede Amonoptega is my name, and I welcome you those who are on UBC Butebo in eastern Uganda. And in case you are want to be part of us in eastern Uganda, we are live on 96.9 FM in Bali, 98.4 FM in Soroti, and we're also live and clear on another radio station in Arua, West Nile Radio. We are live and clear on 98.0 FM, and that covers West Nile sub-region, Lango sub-region, Acholi sub-region, Teso and Karamoja sub-regions. We also live and clear on UBC Magic, that covers all parts in east and central parts of this country. And we are live and clear on UBC Radio, that is the national and national broadcaster. And in case you are in Kampala, we are 98.0 FM. In case you are in Arua, we are 97.4 FM. In case you are in Lida, we are on 99.4 FM. We are also live and clear on another radio station, Voice of Bundbujo, that covers all Toro and Bujoro sub-regions. Those are 5 radio stations that cover UBC Ground Zero. I welcome you to this edition, the people of Uganda. I have a very big privilege and honor to have in the studios of UBC a very special team of guests who are going to be educating, inspiring, and informing us in this edition. A privilege and honor to have you, Dr. Patricia K. Litho, who is the Assistant Commissioner and is the Director and Board Chair, coming from Uganda Media Women's Association. Warm welcome to this edition.
Thank you. Good morning, listeners.
We also have a privilege and honor to have Commissioner Communications coming from the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, where we also belong as UBC. So you're welcome, sir, to this edition of UBC Ground Zero.
Thank you, Amon, and it's a pleasure to meet these friends, some of whom I've not met in a long time. And the doctor here, who I'm meeting for the first time, it's a pleasure to talk to the country on UBC.
Interesting. We also have a privilege and honor to have Dennis Katunji is the Deputy Executive Director coming from Uganda Media Center. Warm welcome to this edition.
Thank you and good morning to our listeners.
We also have a privilege and honor to have Dr. Christopher Rwanga is coming from Uganda People's Congress.
Good morning, Comrade Amon Butega. Greetings from UPC Party President, who has been hosted in Kabale this morning and will spend there the whole day. Indeed, greetings from UPC Fraternity at Uganda House in Uganda and in Africa and in the diaspora, as well as my people whom we work with on the PWD desk, Chengera Town Council and the Kaboja LC1. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. And we also have a big privilege and honor to have Dr. Waisu Abdullah Salam, is the head legal and compliance coming from Uganda Communications Commission. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Good morning to you all listeners. Greetings from the Uganda Communications Commission, and we are privileged to join this conversation on this very important topic. Thank you.
Interesting, our dear listener. We have heard from the guests that we have in the studios of UBC, and you can now tell and be able to know that we're going to have a very interesting conversation having this kind of team in the studios, and I believe that we're going to pick 1 or 2 or 3 words that are going to be helping us to celebrate. We're still in the celebrations. We had World Press Freedom Day celebrated or commemorated yesterday on 3rd May 2024 under the theme Press Freedom, under the theme A Press for the Planet, Journalism in the Face of Environmental Crisis. Would love to get the impact or the impact of journalism, the face of crisis that we all face in this country, and not only in the country but also in the region of East Africa. Ethiopia, Tanzania, Kenya have been washed away by floods, and so many people have been victimized. Others have lost their lives, and many other in the world have had so many challenges that come from the climate change and many other cases. So we'd love to know from the guests that we have in the studios, what contribution do we have as journalists, but also looking at other crises that we have in the world. We have wars, we have conflicts, both in the region but also in the continent. Would love to know what this is about, and how can we do our best to make sure that we provide solutions but not increase these problems. Let me start with you. They always say ladies first, I don't know why, but let me start with you, Dr. Litho, about maybe you can have a makeup of what you do, the institution that we represent, and maybe you can start from there. Welcome again.
Thank you indeed. I'm glad to be a lady today amongst the strong men. I wear many hats, so I would like to say that I'm here, I think, in my capacity as board chair for Uganda Media Women's Association, but I'm also an assistant commissioner at Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development in charge of communication and information management. I do many other things, but for today's discussion, I will limit myself to that. And it's exciting to be here to commemorate World Press Freedom Day that was yesterday. And it's important to reflect upon these fundamental principles of press freedom. And because many times as people in media, we forget that freedom is not absolute. It should be responsible freedom, as we enjoy freedom of expression, access to information, independence. Pluralism is particularly important, and I'm glad, Amon, you highlighted how many parts of the country actually tuned in. That's the diversity and perspective we'd like to see: accountability, safety, and protection. And of course, in light of this year's theme, A Praise for the Planet, journalism in the face of environmental crisis, what would our role be? I'd just like to flag out, the world's triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and air pollution. In there, we have a lot of misinformation going on that I think we should also pay attention to. And with the insight from Minister of Energy, I would just like to highlight the anti-ECOP campaign we've had, where fictitious statistics are flaunted around about how many rivers and lakes Uganda has damaged in the process of exploring its oil. And for me, that's part of the responsibility I would like us to highlight as we celebrate and commemorate the World Press Freedom Day.
Interesting. Thank you so very much. Commissioner Moses Watasa.
Yeah, thanks, Simon, again. As a ministry, as the country might be aware, we do formulate policy. We formulate and implement policy for managing the media in the country. Then the implementing aspects, some of them are delegated to agencies like UCC. And that's why I'm happy to see my good friend Iwaiswa is here. As a government, we aspire to have a free, vibrant, but also responsible media, like Dr. Patricia has alluded to. Uganda, we are proud to join the rest of the world to commemorate World Press Freedom Day. I think media in Uganda has come a long way from the days I remember growing up in the village in Bulambuli, where we had the Radio Uganda and UTV. Amon, you may not know, but you would actually take a break, I think at around 1 or 2. Yes. Then we wait again for Radio Uganda to come back at 4. There was a very funny guy called Peter Lochodo.
Yes.
Livingston Peter Lochodo, who was very, very popular in parts of the East where I come from. Then, for UTV, you would go on air, I think at 5 or 6 p.m.
6.
Then by 11 p.m., I think there was wrestling sometimes. I remember I was young. And you close. But now looking back, it's a whole new landscape. The government adopted a liberal policy towards the media. So by 1992, the media terrain was liberalized. We have numerous. I think Waiswa could give us the statistics. The radios are more than 300, TV stations I think more than 40. We have an explosion of online media. So what government is doing is to open up the space. We are going to continue opening up the space. Then we also have the legal and policy framework, the constitution. Probably Waiswa is a lawyer. Waiswa, I'm going into your territory. We have Article 29, which talks about press freedom. We also have Article 41, which talks about the right of access to information. Then we have the Access to Information Act itself. So you see, as government, we have actually put ourselves under pressure to give out information in our possession. And that's why each ministry or agency has a point person for communication now, like a doctor here who heads the function in the Ministry of Energy, but which also coordinates the sector at large, because under the ministry, there are various agencies. So as government, we are committed to a liberal policy framework, but also to put in place other laws and guidelines. The Access to Information Act, for example, has extensive guidelines which operationalize the Act itself. So from the government perspective, I think the media has grown a lot, it has evolved a lot. Of course, there are some other issues which we'll delve in later, but we are happy. At the ministry, my minister will tell you that we have an open door policy. Yeah, we also have entities like the media center. I'm so happy to see none other than the deputy EDs here. The media center was created to do nothing else but to also ensure that we give out information, not just reactively but also proactively. In fact, the essence of the media center is for government to be proactive in giving out information. All this illustrates our total commitment towards ensuring that the press is not only free, but we also ease the role of the press as in ensuring that information is available at the initiative of the government, but also when the press seeks out information which is in our possession, which partly the media center, Uganda Media Center, is charged with coordinating. So we are, I think, doing well, but also looking at the theme that you alluded to, Amon, the crisis. I thought the word crisis might have been strong, but maybe it helps to create urgency. If you look at the region, I think in Kenya, I was listening to news before I came today, we've lost more than 100 people. It was chilling, I mean, seeing people swimming in parts of, is it Nairobi? This has been coming, our listeners. Where I come from in Elgon.
And Ethiopia is also not spared, and it's also closing to Tanzania.
Absolutely. Where I come from in Elgon, growing up as a boy, these landslides were never heard of. But they started, I think, in the late 90s, and, we used to hear about them in folk tales. But as Elgon and the rest of the country has been persistently degraded, deforestation. I was looking at a report by NFA where they say we are losing 92,000 hectares of forest cover each year. Now, to see how that big is, Mabira Forest is 32,000 hectares. So if we are losing 92,000 in a year, it means we are losing close to 3 times Mabira Forest. No wonder, if you go to parts of northeastern Uganda, the heat is real, it is extreme. I know it's now raining, but the effects of climate change are here with us. When the heat comes, it is prolonged, it is severe. You know that some parts of the country, like Karamoja, as we know, we are facing, food shortages, floods. We've seen them in places like Butaleja, even in my own Bulambuli district, the low-lying areas, Ukedea. So what does this mean? The media, the traditional roles of the media include informing, educating, but also agenda setting. So as we commemorate World Press Freedom Day, we want to see a media that is central to our efforts to mitigate and roll back the effects of climate change. Because as we know, with security, then you have a lot of problems. So in the agenda setting role of the media and also offering a platform for debate like we are here, the media should be, I think, shedding a light on the crisis or the challenge that we are facing of climate change, but also what we can do at various levels by way of policy, by way of mobilizing communities, civil society, the media itself. Because the media, you also shape public opinion. So your voice and the microphone, Amon, is very powerful as we try and work continuously to make our planet a better place. So this theme couldn't have been more appropriate as we reflect on World Press Freedom Day this year.
Interesting. Thank you, Commissioner Watasa. Let me get in Dennis, coming from Uganda Media Center. What you do, how are you supporting this, what is your role? What role does Uganda Media Center see in itself promoting environmental awareness and action through media? But also looking at Uganda Media Center, how do you support or facilitate journalists in covering environmental issues effectively? Dennis?
Thank you. The tenets of the press and journalism never change. You know, we talk about the ABCs, accuracy, brevity, and clarity. They remain important all the time. Then truth, accuracy, and objectivity, those never change under whatever circumstances. Now, the Uganda Media Center, as my colleague has already highlighted, facilitates communication of government policies, programs, projects to the public through the media. And our aim, of course, is to cause factual public awareness of Uganda as a country and to generate information for dissemination to the public. The theme this year, A Press for the Planet, journalism in the face of the environmental crisis. And of course, it's dedicated to the importance of journalism and freedom of expression in the current global environmental context. So, our role is broad. Of course, as you know, the center is the interface of government and the media. So, on a daily basis, you have government communicating to the public through our platform, the center. But the broad awareness of all aspects of the global environmental crisis and its consequences is essential to build democratic societies. Journalistic work is indispensable for this. So it is critical. I think that's why it was called the fourth estate. When you look on the pyramid, disseminating information on contemporary issues, such as, you know, the climate change we are talking about, mining, pollution, poaching, and issues is crucial for promoting peace and the values that we all cherish worldwide, not only in Uganda, but across the board. So in the context of the world's triple planetary crisis that you talk about, climate change, biodiversity loss, and air pollution, disinformation campaigns, they challenge the knowledge and scientific research methods, and these are trends that are all over the world. So we try to emphasize this information, but environmental issues can lead to a lack of public and political support for climate action, effective policies, and the protection of vulnerable communities affected by climate change, as well as of, you know, we always look at the vulnerable communities and people. So we emphasize women, the girls, as climate change leads to exacerbate existing inequalities. So to achieve sustainable development, it is necessary for journalists to report accurately, timely, and comprehensively on environmental issues and their consequences, as well as on possible solutions. So our interface is open, and my colleague has already elaborated, and it's cross-cutting. It falls under the Ministry of ICT with the public at the Uganda Media Center. Thank you.
Most welcome. And before I bring in Waiswa, your contribution as a regulator coming from UCC, I would have to have Dr. Luanga come in as one of our panelists on this very show. How do you perceive journalism in the face of environmental degradation, environmental crisis, and basing on what is taking place not only in the region, in the continent, but elsewhere in the world?
Thanks very much, Comrade Amon Bataga and my fellow panelists, and thanks very much for throwing me such a question. which takes me beyond Uganda to the global level. However, I have to say that our government, or our previous governments, recognized media and journalism as the fourth estate. And if we are to talk in the context of our personal experiences, apart from training journalists, the journalism work, we ensured that journalists should not miss out with the best training, with the best exposure, and after they have gained their experience, that's glued to newspapers, made us glued to television sets, made us glued to radio stations because of the level of the journalism we had trained. In the Voice of Uganda, people, once they buy the newspaper, would go for a Kanya straight. And a Kanya was setting the agenda. Others would go for sports straight because Badluzwa was there writing very good items. But leaving that aside, our commitment was not only to give the audio, but under television. The struggle with the media was not an easy one, because today in your generation, you just wake up in your home or in your bedroom and you put on a radio and you put on a television. Community centers, which are established at a Gombolola level. So you could imagine, if it is Muhammad Ali having a boxing walk to those places, or go to a few individuals in the village or in our communities who are privileged. So I just mentioned that to show the giant steps of where we have exactly come from. Now, this important issue you have thrown to me, whether at a global level, whether at a regional level, whether at a national level, the journalists have a huge stake in it. It should be the journalists to tell us the scare, which is in environmental degradation, which is in climate change, which is in biodiversity loss. Once the journalists have really understood it deeply and have even specialized, I'm a keen follower of BBC. Almost on each issue happening globally, BBC will have an expert, whether culture, whether politics, whether what, and they will break it region per region, continent per continent. So when we have this sort of contradiction, is that environmental protection, limiting global warming change, require collective effort, require collective voice. But the main culprits at the same time set a global agenda. And when you raise some of these issues to them, they can say, when it comes to pollution, we shall do it more. So we have a contradiction, okay, which is very, very big. And we are scared that already journalism is reporting that the global north, which used to enjoy these icebergs are starting to melt. And if they melt, from the point of view you have brought to this challenge, it is a challenge which is indeed which they have been given. But you find that even at a continental level, there is a lot we can do if journalism understands fully the concept of environmental protection. There is a lot we can do to influence policy leaders. For instance, Africa now would not be suffering if we sat down as a continent and we say, Tshisekedi and your DRC government, what do you need to make Inga Dam work for Africa, not even for DRC? Tshisekedi would say that dam, the entire sub-Saharan Africa can cook using hydraulic power from Inga Dam, can light, can move machines, can do whatsoever. How much would we have liberated Africa from using firewood, from using charcoal? How much oxygen would we have saved that would go to help the global world? Okay? If at all we put our efforts together and developed Inga Dam as one of the magic formula, okay? We have that formula and it is there. Come to domesticate it to Uganda. When is my old grandparent in Chamuliwa going to start cooking using electricity?
Okay.
We have Ayago. We have Karuma. We have Sezibwa. When are we tapping in that? When you tap in that and you control pollution, you control the trees, you control the charcoal usage, you are contributing greatly to the developed world, where even this type of vegetation is very rare to see from January to December.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Interesting. Our dear listener, this is UBC Ground Zero. We are on 5 radio stations covering entire Uganda. We are talking about World Prime UCC as a regulatory framework. How does UCC view the role of media in addressing these environmental issues, especially in Uganda, before we talk about the region? Since I could say not that you're limited to Ugandan boundaries and jurisdiction, but looking at these policies and regulations in place to support or guide environmental reporting.
Okay. Thank you very much, Amon. Good morning once again to our listeners, and we thank UBC for hosting us this morning. Certainly, UCC as a regulator of the communication sector in Uganda, this is a topical matter for us to discuss, and we are proud to report that as UCC, working together with the government that sets policies for us, we put in place a number of frameworks, and we've come up with a number of initiatives that are all facilitating the thriving of media in Uganda. Listening to the seniors with me in the studio, them recounting what used to happen many years ago, where they only used to watch one TV closing after a few hours, radio being only maybe UBC was like synonymous to radio in Uganda. But at the moment, as a regulator, we are proud to say that Uganda, there is a lot of interest in the media, both from the consumer perspective, but also from the investor's perspective. I can tell you that as we speak now, we have 340 radio stations. These are spread across the country. I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that every corner of Uganda, border to border, receives radio signals. And this I need to clarify to a number of our listeners who could be in some towns listening to us. But then there is a lot of push now from many people across Uganda that for every new district, every new town council, there should, by media being present in an area, we look at, is there coverage? Are you able to tune into a radio station from that part of the country? And I can confirm to you that 100% of Uganda's geographical location is covered by radio. And that includes even in the forests. Even on the lake, when you're on lake, you can receive radio signals. And that's why we can confidently say that Uganda is covered border to border. And this is a very big milestone. Somebody might look at it as a small achievement, but from the perspective of many platforms through which people can receive information, through which people can be educated, entertained, and guided on how they can improve their welfare. So this, we give credit to the government of Uganda that adopted the liberal sector, limited to UBC. But as we speak now, there are many programs running across the country, and the listeners have the choice to tune into whatever program they so wish. Those that are now listening to us on Ground Zero, they love it. If there is another person who wants to listen to music, they are able to do that. Another one wants to listen to some church preaching or Islamic preaching. They have that choice. And in a liberal democratic country like Uganda, that is a very big achievement. And from a regulatory perspective, we are proud of the milestones we've so far registered. In Uganda, these televisions are broadcasting different types of content to our people in Uganda. And we think this is also, people are now utilizing all the innovations and the inventions in technology to create new channels through which they can communicate to the public. One of them are read by more people than our physical newspapers. So we are proud to say that at the moment we have about 89 such online and radio, and these are mostly young people operating from very, very small rooms, but they are able to churn out information that is shaping the narrative and informing our people in the country. So we are proud and we salute all those people that have chosen to invest. I see not less than 2 or 3 applications by different Ugandans seeking to open up new radio stations across the country. Of course, there is a problem now that there is shortage of frequencies. So most people who come and request for new radios, we tell them, unfortunately, there is no frequency, so we cannot allow it to open up a radio. And also we are seeing a tendency by some people who illegally go and connect themselves online and then begin broadcasting on radio stations that have not been authorized by UCC. That is an offense, and many times we run around, we enforce against them, we prosecute them, and up to the planning, we disrupt the quality of service. But if somebody went to Mukono and set up a radio station and they push themselves onto an illegal frequency, let me say 97.9, that is just 1 megahertz away from UBC, that will mean that the people around Mukono, Kayunga, Jinja, and mandates as UCC, aside from licensing radio broadcast, communication service providers, we also facilitate the services they provide. It's not by mistake that when you come to UBC here, you find that the microphones are structured in a particular way, the studios are set up the way they are, the towers and antennas are facing a particular direction. This is all because the UCC try to guide and set parameters for all radio operators to operate in a particular way to ensure that, one, there is mutual coexistence between the operators, but also consumers are able to receive quality services. So the question, what UCC is doing to facilitate proper reporting on environmental and other society issues, I can only say that as a regulator, UCC, we are proud to say that we've set a number of parameters, we've developed a number of frameworks, we have come up with a number of regulations, of course through government and the Ministry of ICT, and these regulations generally give the broadcasters the latitude to choose programming that is informative, that is educative, that is helpful to the community. We keep reminding our operators that, one, use the media platforms you have to shape people's agenda, to shape people's perception, to improve the general welfare of the community. So we do not necessarily tell them that you must come up with this kind of program, and this should be the content you air, but we tell them that in whatever program you come up with, ensure that, one, the information you give out to people is accurate. The information is not misleading.
But Dr. Waisu, you also mentioned that those stations that are operating and established without even your consent, many others are operating in rural settings which you have not known. Others are doing them, have podcasts online. How, as a regulator, how are you able to regulate the content that go through these media platforms, both online and especially on environment? Are you not bothered that this could lead into environmental crisis?
Generally, as regulators, one, to the illegals, it is clearly illegal under the Uganda Communications Act for anybody to set up a radio station or a TV station or even an online broadcasting platform without a license issued by UCC. In fact, when you look at section 26 and 27 of the Uganda Communications Act, if UCC finds you doing that, you can be apprehended, you can be prosecuted, and if found guilty, you can be sentenced to up to 5 years. And I tell you, we've prosecuted many people. myself and 7 other colleagues working for UCC, we are licensed by the DPP to investigate, but also to prosecute offenders of communication-related laws. So we do that. But generally, as a regulator, we try to guide people. We warn them, we sensitize them, and tell them not to breach the law and avoid the risk of being arrested. Now, how do we regulate all those that are providing communication services? We set frameworks, we come up with guidelines, we give them licenses with terms and conditions. In the terms and conditions, we tell them, for example, that every radio station, every TV station should come up with diverse programming that targets to achieve certain critical society issues. So we do not prescribe for them how much time they should, for example, give to environment. We don't do that because generally as a regulator, we do not, we are more hands-off. We set frameworks. We allow media houses to exercise editorial independence and also to determine their own programming, because we recognize also that media houses are investments. Media houses are people's businesses, so they must come up with programming that appeals to their advertisers, to their listeners, but also able to generate enough revenue for them to sustain their operation. So because of that, we set the general framework. So for example, in 2019, the Minister of ICT, Honorable Frank Tumwebaze, issued 22 regulations. These regulations touch on different aspects of communication. One of them is a regulation on content. It's called the Uganda Communications Content Regulation 2019. Those regulations are detailed about how media programs should be structured, how programs should be researched, how they should be presented, what kind of balancing should be done to ensure that if you're reporting about Lake Victoria, if you're reporting about preservation of the environment, are you giving the audience accurate information? Okay. Do not give people misleading information that could end up swaying them off what they know and what the public expects them to actually believe in. So
Thank you.
We keep reminding our operators to be factual, to be balanced, but also to seek out for experts, because we know that as a as a radio presenter, you may not be an expert in every field, but then we tell you, come up with programs where you invite experts. If you're talking about how we can protect Lake Victoria from maybe a water hyphen, how bring out an expert from the technical departments of government, from the private sector, to come and give you ideas and educate the public about these issues. So we mainly do it through creating frameworks, guiding them, and constantly reminding them to follow the international benchmarks and standards on proper and professional journalism.
Thank you, Dr. Waitho. Those who are part of us from the other side of radio, this is UBC Ground Zero, and we are on 5 radio stations. UBC Voice of Wonbojo, UBC Western Nile in Narua, UBC Butebo in Eastern Uganda. We are on UBC Radio in Kampala, Magic 100 FM in Kampala, and Western Nile and Planet Journalism in the face of environmental crisis. Allow me get to you, Dr. Patricia Litho. Would have to know the participation, the contribution of women journalists in this cause of environmental protection, conservation, reporting, and many others. But you'll answer that later. I don't want to leave the issue of social media and mainstream media. What Dr. Waitho is talking about is mainly in the mainstream media. Those who host the experts like we are doing right now, and many others, generally to give that important content to the people or to the listeners. That is TV and radio. Social media platforms can be bleeding grounds of misinformation, and you've heard that. And someone gets his phone or her phone and starts posting or speaking about something that even they don't have true or real information. Where does this leave the fight? Litho?
Oh, I thought that was meant for UCC, but let me give it
He has answered on his perception of regulation and the mechanism they have and policies they have introduced. But it is one thing to introduce policies and it is the other thing to implement them. That is on their side. But from you as an expert and from the perspective that you're also a consumer, and many other Ugandans who consume a lot from what is on social media, where do you think this will take the country?
I think, like he said earlier, the convergence of technology has given us possibilities and actually broadened access to information. But of course, that has come with challenges like misinformation, with AI, artificial intelligence. This is even worse, the level to which people distort information, manipulate images, and unfortunately, a lot of our young people with access to online media, which is what they prefer, are very gullible. So you see there's a missing link in terms of media information literacy and what we need to do about it. So while they create alternatives, and as a journalist, you know, whether they're a journalist or not, they're called journalists. But who is a journalist? I mean, there are proper training institutions, there's professional ethics. A lot of these have been abused because an entertainer who might seem to attract the crowd, when someone sets up a radio station, this will be the journalist they bring on board. So maybe that is something also about who can practice. And if you're found not to be professionally trained and you're practicing, then there's a challenge. We always hear about the quack doctors who have undertaken operations and things like that. So for me, it should be allowed, the citizen journalism, it has created a lot of that, but also there should be regulation on what it takes, what you should do, and the responsibilities. And perhaps if a doctor comes back later to talk about UCC, maybe needs to throw more light on the extent of regulation in those spaces. Line. Do I need a separate license or automatically the existing license I have? But of course, before you take the microphone away from me, I would like to answer the aspect on women. Yes, of course, environment actually has many aspects change, but we don't look at the other aspects who are most vulnerable to any environmental change. When Commissioner Watasa talked about the prevalent landslides, for instance, and floods at the moment, we know that normally women and children are the most affected. For some reason, I think men are better swimmers than women, maybe also culturally, the way we were brought up. What are the boys doing? What are the girls doing? Women are responsible for feeding the family. So he also talked about food security. How are we empowering? How are we accessing information to these groups of people, how to handle different scenarios? We talk about deforestation because of sources of energy. Women are not only the most affected, but they are also contributors to deforestation because they need sources of fuel as they look for firewood or as they look for charcoal to be able to access energy. You find that they contribute to that, but also they're personally at risk because if the forest cover reduces, it means as a woman I have to walk a longer distance. If the first 96, did we say 96 square miles have been cleared near me, it means I'm walking a longer distance and late hours or very early to try and access fuel. So to me, a woman being a journalist can bring some of these insights and perspectives in the way they appreciate and cover things to do with the environment. They can be appraised for the planet with that eye. Can they bring on board? It's like talking about labor pains. When I hear men allude to labor pain like they know it, I know psychologically they experience it differently. It's different from me who has experienced labor pain. So there
But ladies, you get you are pregnant physically, but men do psychologically. We also carry that.
I can neither defend no dismiss your claim, because I've always had that. Of course, there's the psychological labor pain. But what I'm saying that, yes, like you said, you have a totally different perspective to labor pain. I have a totally different perspective to labor pain. Those gender roles they give us as women. Coming from Eastern Uganda, Tororo, Luos particularly, if you look at their Cholis, Langis, and so on and so forth, women are even responsible for putting up houses. So coming from that part of the country and growing up in the central, it was always a cultural shock when I went back home and my grandmother is responsible for putting up a hut and, smearing it and roofing it, and my grandfather, either was sitting, drinking his alcohol or doing something else. Yet for instance, if there's no more grass for roofing? What does it mean for the woman who has several other responsibilities? Know that when it comes to capacity building, sometimes men get advantages over women for certain obvious reasons. As someone who has taught mass communication at Makerere, you find that the majority of the students are actually female. But what happens after graduation? And the few who make it up to the newsroom, because of the social pressures when they get married, personally, I'm happy to be back home. I remember working here, I had this particular assignment that involved me traveling to Nairobi, and I remember my fiancé at that time went in there. You know, this shouldn't be for a woman. But you see those challenges, it means a skill like mine, even if I've been trained in other men I'm working with, the risk that I'm put at. So you find that even if I'm trained as a climate communicator or journalist, that is lost out. So how do we ensure continuity, but also give these assurances of safety and protection for journalists, not just the male ones, but the female ones as well? And how do we create that room? How do we give those insights as journalists? You know, appreciate the different perspectives and bring those voices on board to know that men experience this differently, women experience this differently. So
2647 or call us on 0776 511 426 to participate or raise any concern that, if I may call that. It can be bribed to kill the environmental crime story because he's not financially well. And some people still think that to Katonji, who is coming from Uganda Media Center, but also to Commissioner Watasa. You've had people who have sponsored journalists, someone says the mafias. Where does this leave the fight for protecting the environment? Dennis.
Thank you. I think when we were starting, I highlighted of journalism. So what you're talking about is corruption of journalism, which is an issue on its own. Actually, one of the most freest terrains for as is corruption elsewhere. Otherwise, the profession has its tenets, and if followed, they would not include that. I would let Mr. Watasa expound on that, but what I wanted to highlight is that some of the issues we ignore or look at as inferior actually affect this country. And the element of reporting lacking, because we can damage our own country, damage tourism by the way we report. So it's something I thought we should touch on, is that even journalists should have that. I think most of the countries in the world where you report. So my senior colleague here is more imbibed in the elements that you highlighted in your question. So
what you are talking about, and the other actors in the sector quite extensively discussing about that. Is it called the brown envelopes? There's that into a political season like the one we're going into. Friend here or doctor here from UPC. I have this story and I'm going to file it by 2 p.m. I need your side of the story. Doctor, other families in Bulambuli and and in Tungamo. I just need one line from you and I file the story. Of course, naturally, doctor will be unsettled. Then that's where now they come in and say, but you see, doctor, we can meet at this restaurant in Mengo. If you do the right thing, I may drop the story. That is corruption. We know that, yes, journalists are not among the well-paid people. If anything, they are not well-paid generally. But that are listed quite extensively in the Press and Journalism Act, Cap 105. So this is an ethical issue. It's but it also has something to do with is arguably the most. If you do a lot of trainings up country, where someone comes with a phone, a small phone which has a recorder and says I'm from radio, but journalism has by the journalists, but who are also misbehaving. So these are some of the things we are addressing with the likes of Uganda Media Working Sector. In fact, we set up this group to try and see that we deal with some of these cases without going the fullest extent of like the law, because that's masquerading. That is, I think police say you are making your ethical infiltration of the profession. Now, Council Waiswa spoke about citizen journalism. Now, gatekeeping has become an issue, I think, quite a lot because of this citizen journalism. There's a time that explosion outside our ministry, one of the bombs went off there. Within 5 minutes, I had people actually calling me from outside Uganda that your whole building is down for the office, you know. So these are some of the issues, but that is corruption, which we need to deal with. One, I think, legally, but also through training, the ethical policies. Dr. Patricia, I don't want to name names, but to journalists to engage, these associations of like broadcasters, the owners of media houses, through Honorable Minister Chris Bariomunsi. He maintains a really open door policy, the less than ideal welfare to justify cases of corruption, blackmail, and sometimes extortion.
How does
that's
the
what we are
ministry
doing. We do the Media Council of Uganda, aspects of the law. So we certainly don't. For example, Dr. Patricia, someone goes to Entebbe, travels from Kampala, picks a story, and comes, and if they are lucky and is aired, sometimes they earn less than 5,000 shillings. So through associations like yours, Dr. Patricia, we want to continuously engage and ensure well paid, because as you know, Doctor, there is so we need to reporting as in applies with the environment, which, like we've noted, is the source of everything else we do in the country.
Commissioner,
if the environment breaks,
you talked
nothing
about
is going to work.
How is the ministry with the regulatory measures?
I didn't want to go into this, but we are revised because, as you note, some of these people who have been doing breaches, some were being charged under laws like the Computer Misuse Act, but which were not concrete. Because we are going to do extensive education and sensitization once Cabinet approves the new communications policy 2023, other laws, and consolidating some of them to make them stronger, so that we have a better and more appropriate legal and policy framework. Going to in the process of setting up rigors of the court. As we, for example, from let's say these are our people, and and improve their incomes, and they're only supposed to report about wealth creation without taking part and also creating wealth for themselves and their households. So we are being creative and we are open, through which we can also improve our livelihoods. We hope that will mitigate or minimize the pressure for journalists to indulge in unethical behavior.
Dr. Little, time to answer that. And a lot from business, and they're making business in TV, put down their professionalism aside. This leave journalism.
Thanks very much, Comrade Harmony Butega, for raising that issue. Actually, I would say that as I'm standing here and representing UPC is one of the media houses. It was as if they on the media. And wherever some would even tell you 66 crisis, or don't touch this one. Others would do pure journalism or professional. But where does this negation where is trained? Now, that institution where is trained, we have not bothered to set the real standards. And we have not even bothered to give those sort of facility, employ journalists for internship or even for a job. The one who is going to help out will be told, please, if you want a job, come have those sort of gadgets in the field. And when they have them in the field, they may struggle through other ways by which to have such type of gadgets. However, some, once they have got whatever they need, like gadgets to use, they will remain principled. Okay? However, every journalist has a hierarchy. He jumps, he goes through. The issue, bring the stories to the sub-editor and to the editor. Now you find that so many of media houses have mushroomed very fast. when Berlin was of hidden super on the market. And because it was not very much free, this internet was there even in the 50s, but it had been an instrument used by the big boys. The regulatory arm have mushrooming, and indeed it is very difficult. It is like almost like schools which are mushrooming. It is very difficult to have very senior people to give guidance in each and every media house. However, having a setup of into some other association and Uganda Journalists Union advanced that situation that our journalism is at wage, and I think also during Labor Day minimum wage became a topical issue. You cannot expect a journalist to be very different from the actual landscape we are all living in. So other supportive figures which could come in the life of our workers. And I would be very much happy also when established media houses don't just take in Madrid with the UBC and the exit. Now, successful.
Dr. Weiss, much more about media diversity and invest to promote diversity and inclusivity and perspectives which are...
Generally, UCC has put in place all the necessary frameworks to facilitate diversity. Or by accident that you see many radio stations, TVs mushrooming from all across the country and all coming up with different programming. First, investors into the media space concentrate their journalism. So that's why you see in Uganda now we have radio stations that focus on youth issues. We have media stations that just focuses on just women. We have people who come and apply for licenses, and their programming, you see, it is all focused towards, it's all biased towards, for example, looking at youth, looking at the urban people. So because of this, as a regulator, and this is the standard across the world, where they can become more meaningful and more specialized in their journalism work. So as UCC, we may not, for example, tell you that we tell every radio that it should come up with a programming on environment. But we tell them that broad enough to cater for all aspects of life. Let it be informative, let it be educative, let it focus on what is pressing hard the community at a particular time in order for it to be relevant. So as a regulator, and when you look at our regulations, the house should do in its programming. So when you see, for example, my colleagues were talking about social media and how this could affect the quality of reporting on environment and other issues, it is true that social media is now a big animal, not just in never been before. I mean, previously, somebody had to be working for a radio station. Even in the Press and Journalist Act of 1994, 1995, there was an attempt to prescribe requirement for people to obtain practicing licenses every year before they could be journalists. And in fact, under that law, it is still criminal for anybody to work as a journalist when they're not licensed by the Media Council. It is still on the statute book. Only that because of, again, this government being one that listens to its people, that law has remained on the statute book without implementation because of many structural issues in the media industry. Specifically, the biggest challenge is and proving professionalism and accountability, and may be requiring certain qualifications for anybody to practice journalism in Uganda. Most times, the journalists, with the backing of the civil society organizations, they vulgarize the discussion and look about a profession without talking about professionalism. And professionalism begins with some bit of minimum qualifications. We've encouraged media owners that, okay, even if you have to hire any person trained in another field, if you hire them to your radio TV, at least take them through the fundamentals of journalism. At UCC, we've come up with deliberate policies to train media practitioners. We move across the country to train journalists on the as employees that they feel need refresher training in journalism. Let them write to UCC. we shall arrange with them, we shall take for them a group of people. Some of them are journalists, some of them are working for the regulator, to train them on the do's and don'ts. We've spoken to many journalists. All this we do because there is a recognition that there is a training gap. And we know that as a regulator, we cannot unfortunately do it alone. For example, if you asked me how best we would handle this as an individual, I would say, let us practice in certificate. I've made arguments on many platforms, and I can repeat it here, that for me, I have a doctorate in law. I've practiced law for the last 14 years. But I tell you, every 31st of the year, of 31st of December, my practicing certificate as an advocate of the High Court expires. And I must apply to justify to the Law Council that I deserve a practicing certificate the next year.
You're
and
saying that journalists should borrow a leave?
I feel like journalists should borrow a leave from that, because what that helps us to do as lawyers is that I never feel like I'm untouchable as a lawyer. Even as I'm here on UBC, I'm aware that if I ask me to answer certain questions why I conduct myself in a way that is unbecoming of an advocate of the High Court. Now, that makes me accountable, not just when I'm in court, but also when I'm doing my other advisory work, say at UCC, or even when I'm in my private life. I must behave in a particular way, because at all times I wear the hat of being an advocate of the High Court, or being an officer of court. So if journalists can look at this not as an attempt by anybody to remove them from practicing journalism, but rather as a deliberate step to improve professionalism, I think if we can have consensus on that issue as an industry, it would help this country a lot.
Thank you so very much. That and more is coming after this very break. I'm taking a very short break, and I'm coming back in just a bit. I pray you don't go away. And after the break, I'm going to be receiving your calls. I see you have started calling, but let me go for a short break. And when I return, you call us on 0776 511 426. Or send your messages on 0701 24 26 47. I'm coming back in just a bit.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back. That was Ground Zero. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody should. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customer tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by the Constitution.
Ground Zero Season 2, live and syndicated on your public and national broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Every Saturday, UBC Radio broadcasts the Information Hub, your one-stop dial radio show. Join us to learn and know more information about innovations, research, and developments. The Information Hub, knowledge is power, on UBC Radio, inspiring Uganda.
This is Ground Zero Season 2. Stay tuned. We shall be right back. Welcome back. Ground Zero Season 2 continues.
Welcome back from that very short break. Ampaire Amon Ortega is my name. We're talking about a press for the planet, journalism in the face of environmental crisis. And in the studios of UBC, I have a big privilege and honor to have Dr. Patricia K. Litho, is the Assistant Commissioner in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, but also is the Director and Board Chair for Women for Uganda Media Women's Association. And we also have Moses Watasa is the Commissioner Communications coming from the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. We also have Dr. Waiswa Abdusalam is the Head Legal and Compliance coming from Uganda Communications Commission. We also have Dennis Katunji is the Deputy Executive Director coming from Uganda Media Center. 776-511-426. The number to call on is 0776 776-511-426, and you'll be able to raise your concern or to participate in this very edition of UBC Ground Zero. We are on 5 radio stations: UBC Bundabujo, UBC West Nile, UBC Butebo, Magic 100 FM, and UBC Radio, and we're also streaming live on YouTube. If I can as well read your messages as you call in. UBC Radio, call on 776-511-426. Aine Babala, you say that we need environmental court to be established and empowered, and this will help to empower journalists that when they report their cases, at least will be not only be viewed or heard, but can be considered in this very important court. UBC Radio.
Yes, I'm on. Good morning.
A very good morning to you.
Juma from the Dutch Roundabout Sega.
Thank you for being part of us.
Welcome.
Your concern,
Thank
please.
you for bringing for us important topic today. And a greeting to everyone in the studio there. Amon, I may appeal to the government to gear up welfare of the meteorologists in this country, Uganda. Sometime when now it's happening with the evidence, we are seeing that the climate has changed. That's when we turn to run to their offices to look for their support. But now when the weather is at normal, everyone tends to relax in the different offices, various offices. No one bother less. And when now we are facing the challenges of the weather issues, that's when you tend to see that to fix the problems which are in hand become hard, because these natural hazards, some of them, they first show signs that things are not going to be fine soon. So we need government to, at least to keep everyone awake. And that one will come with a honest transparency and accountability. You know, when someone is accountable for something which are not done in the right way, the public need the action taken against such a person who violated the role or the duties. Okay? We tend we tend to see that government are not doing enough. Now, when it comes to journalism, these journalists sometimes they are threatened when they are in the field of work. You wait time for campaign comes, a journalist who is going to capture certain partisan side, you will find that is threatened. And they want journalists to move with the bulletproof, like they are also part of those activities as far as the election is concerned. Very many are being brutalized. And RBCs, DPC, and RCC, these are the people who are ordering command sometimes to obstruct the professional journalists from performing their duty. And you will be seeing even they're being overwatched. No action taken against such officer. The military are overusing too much power to deny the work of journalists. Now, what is the purpose of information? How will the part of the world will receive this information? If you are not guilty, let everything be at the camera. Let everyone to know that you are right. Don't be proud of yourself that you are the big. No. We need to be fair to one another. Let us practice humanity.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Most welcome, Juma, and thank you for those serious concerns. 776 can empower environmental courts, and this will empower the journalists. Someone says misinformation itself is causing more environmental crisis, and we need UCC. They have tried to cut down and prevent obscene content on radios and TVs. I wish they could use the same efforts to handle and tackle misinformation about environment, because it is causing more harm. It is causing more harm. Ben Okebe, you say we have sponsored journalism and content that promote dubious missions by the mafias. You must have known and heard how billionaires use the media to promote COVID-19 and bad vaccines, fake vaccines, which turned out to be fake on the market. So journalism in this way can be used to promote journalism can be used to promote bad content, but also to benefit I think millionaires or billionaires. Okay, that is Ben Okebe. Tony Semogerere, you say Mabila is gone, Katonga is gone, and you also how much we paid in terms of convenience, traffic interruptions, and business was shut down when Katonga was washed away. This should give this should have opened our eyes, and so many people have lost their lives in Kenya and the neighboring communities. It is high time we don't speak about environment, but we raise all and act. That is Tony Semogerere. Jacob, you're listening in from Leader. You say the word. I would like Commissioner Watasa to tell us the mechanisms they have as the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance to promote or bring technology, because people now use technology to know about weather changes and many others, but it has failed in Uganda. People do not carry their umbrellas, and I wish you can resend your message, Jacob, again, but I think you were talking about technology and how best the people of Uganda can use it to able to worsen environmental changes or weather conditions. Also, I added that the Ministry of ICT, how are you handling misinformation which diverts the citizens? Yet you are responsible for mindset change. Keep your messages coming through. I'll be reading one by one. Samuelson says, please don't, thank you for the program. I am John. I am a journalist. The rich are encroaching on the wetlands. Even when journalists, we have reported about it, nothing is done, and we lose the guts of covering such stories again. Or perhaps journalists are targeted and become victims. We need a law that protects the journalists in covering such stories. Let me go back to the studios of UBC to answer such concerns, and I will start with Commissioner Watasa. Moses.
Okay, thanks. It's actually good to know that there are so many people listening to us across the country. The question, I understood it to mean that what are we doing to ensure that there's greater use of ICTs? One of them is that we are expanding connectivity around the country, and I'm happy. I'm happy Nduguaisa is here, because actually through UCC we are expanding reach to places which are not considered commercially viable by these telecom companies. UCC is helping us, for example, to build the masts around the country. Council-wise, I will shed more light on that. But also through NITAU, we are building more fiber around the country. Our target is that in the next 5 or 6 years, we should cover the whole country in as far as internet connectivity is concerned. We are also pressing to ensure that the price of ICT devices like smartphones comes down. Our target is to reduce shillings so that more people can afford them, for purposes of communicating, for purposes of trading online, for purposes of, reaching out to each other. So the ministry is doing a lot. The other thing we are doing is training, because as you have seen, like the case with IFRIS, I think it's partly appreciation of the system and the operating and working with it. So one of the things the ministry is doing is deepening and expanding training in functional ICT skills. Again, this is one of the things we are doing with the UCC through computer labs across the country. But also we are doing short courses for functional skills in ICT, like I've said, for business people. Again, partly we are doing that with UCC and the other actors. So one, increase the access to ICTs, but also the skilling and also the devices. He also talked about what else did he talk about? He also talked about high-handedness. There's someone who talked about that people are harassing journalists. That is it's true, but it's also isolated, and it is also regrettable. You remember some time back, the CDF then General David Muhoozi, actually did issue an apology. And what we do, our security agencies are like any other entity you might have, which has possibly a few bad apples here and there. I think it's the Baganda say omulya w'emamba abeera omu naye yavumisa ekika kyonna. Then he say, you speak better Luganda than me. That the one who eats the mud fish is usually one person, but he gets the whole clan to be blacklisted. So what we do, our security agencies have self-cleaning mechanisms. The police, for example, have a professional standards unit which deals with cases like those, and they did. So all that means that we realize we are not perfect, but the good thing the public should know is that we have a commitment to resolve these issues and continuously work towards ensuring that anybody who mistreat journalists, not just journalists, but the rest of our people. Because where we started from, Uganda is a government, a people's government, it's an elected government, so everyone should be free in their country, and this includes journalists. And I actually remember the president himself did issue a long guidelines, a long document, detailed documents, guiding on how security actors should handle our people. So yes, we are not perfect, but journalists or even Ugandans shouldn't worry. We have open channels of communication. In fact, in our upcoming communication policy, we are proposing to set up a cabinet subcommittee on communication and media, which includes even Ministry for Internal Affairs, but also Ministry for Security. So you can see from the very top, the presidency, the cabinet, even at our technical levels, we are committed to ensuring that the practice of journalism goes on unfettered, but that we also have, like I said, a free, vibrant, but also responsible media. Because if media is abused, it can also cause problems for the country. Again, as the older people, me who is older than Council Waiswa, in one of the neighboring countries, media actually complicated a big problem and caused the death of people in hundreds of thousands. Reason? There were people behind the microphones, like this one, Amon, where you are behind, the regrettable words. So regulation, freedom, vibrancy, but also responsibility, but also security and protection for journalists, yes.
Dr. Rwanga?
Yes, please.
The face of a journalist. How best should we safeguard this sector and this industry, but also the people that are within? Because we have now known their relevancy, we know how important they are, but they seem to be still somewhere hidden. How best can we put them light and make sure that they enjoy this profession? Not that someone would call me or someone else and you come there. There was a meme someone was sharing. The rich man was holding money and standing in middle of the swamp and called a journalist to report, and he said, your job is to let the public know that this is not a wetland, but these people who are standing in water, and this is the journalism that we're talking about. How best can we empower a journalist to report genuine and professionally?
Thanks very much, Comrade Amoni, for throwing me back to that important question. That question requires what is the mind of our society and our government. A moment our government appreciates that journalism is the fourth estate, the rest will fall in place. I give you an example. I was quite very close to our founding father, Dr. Apollo Milton Obote. But before he did anything, the first newspaper you should read once it is out was the opposition newspaper of Democratic Party, Munansi, All Citizen, and would be very much keen to know what does Munansi say about this situation. The government paper would say, that one can come last. Okay? What am I trying to say is us to bring down media and journalism. But at the same time also, as we are in this crisis and we are celebrating Press Freedom Day, the media should also know that they can cease to operate if they don't advise the society, if they don't advise the people wisely. How can they cease to exist? All their gadgets they use are powered by electricity. So it should be the media itself to run flat out to safeguard the environment. Because one day when we cannot breathe, when we cannot have enough electricity, when we cannot have enough food, when we cannot move because of floods, like now Kampala anytime may have these deadly floods which can even enter our media houses. However, this goes with an extra way of maybe calling upon institutions which help companies to restructure. Some of these media houses can also be restructured. And when they are restructured, there is another way they can maneuver. And again, I'm very happy when the government had made a decision that all government adverts and programs should be handled by UBC alone or other affiliates of the government. UPC stood out and said, we moved into a liberalized economy. And some of these media houses are still very young. If you deny them government adverts, they may go under, they may collapse. So government reconsidered that position, had our voice together with other added voices, and it came to help. So if there is a way the government should help, the government should lessen the burden from the various media houses. I know a professional camera which requires to do that professional work costs a minimum of 10 million shillings. Suppose the government, through other government corporations, brought those cameras and said, we are advancing these cameras on a subsidy. Bring 5 million, which you can pay periodically. Then at the same time, there has been a biggest challenge here. Any journalist who ventures into investigative journalism, they really have.
I remember the story that was read by Selwanja.
Yes.
About how the poor, especially hospitals, are selling free medicine to private facilities, and this medicine was taken outside Uganda, even when it had not for sale.
Yes. And indeed, that story brought to our brother Sirwanja a lot of problems. Okay? A lot of problems. And to come out of it, maybe...
But also, is it someone who sent a message, or it was Juma called about safeguarding the journalists, especially in conflict? We have always seen dueling riots, especially in cities, Kampala, Jinja, not even here in Uganda, but elsewhere. The first time, the most targeted are journalists. If you are to look at the Gaza, the conflict between Palestine and Israel, the most killed are the journalists. How can we safeguard the journalists? After all, they are the ones that bring this story.
The journalists have a responsibility of reporting what is going on. By reporting what is going on, they are not mobilizing people to come in for demonstrations. Normally, these well-organized demonstrations are given permission, like the way we had the Mabira demonstration. Okay, those are to the sale of Mabira to use it for growing sugar canes, and they are moving from one point to another point. And this is the message. Now, nobody disrupting the demonstrators. But now you find that our security personnel, together with others who mobilize the Ugandans, that we need even to demonstrate and demand political parties. But towards Uganda House there, one of the student journalists was killed in that mishap. Okay, but now the values of demonstrating to bring multipartyism to the country, we are reaping. And the journalists who covered the event, I think it was not a wasted effort. So you find here that the very situation we are living in also gives us challenges. But the security people must learn to humble themselves. And I may not belong to the other side. I'm free to criticize or to bring out that mistake in a mature way. And once it is demonstrated...
You, Dr. Rwanga, Dr. Waiswa, someone sent a message and said the efforts that you have put in putting down the obscene content, especially mainstream media and many others, though you have failed on social media, can't you apply the same efforts to prevent misinformation, especially on environmental reporting?
Okay, thank you very much for that question, listener. Thank you also for that observation. It is not true that UCC has failed to address issues of misinformation. We just need to appreciate that, one, technology has made everybody almost a journalist. And therefore, because of that, all regulators and governments across the world, including the most advanced countries like the UK, like the US, they're all dealing with the issues of misinformation, malinformation, fake news. So the challenges we are experiencing because of people misreporting about certain issues, we are all trying to come up with different measures. Now, on our part as UCC, we've done so many things to, one, ensure that our journalists they consider facts when they are reporting about anything, but also as UCC we have even gone ahead to come up with what we call a fact-checking app that is available for free on the Uganda Communications Commission website. So we've told, for example, every journalist that if you're about to report about anything and you're unable to confirm from an expert about what you're going to say, before you go on air, use this app, put in that information that you're trying to report about or to verify. The system will pick out the facts about that issue, and then you'll be updated as a journalist before you even go on air. Even as a user, the consumers of media services, we tell them that if a story is published about you and you feel like the story maybe is not factual or you have some misgivings about it, you can also on your own use that fact-checking app on the UCC website to verify the authenticity of whatever information. But also, you've seen many times UCC coming up whenever some stories are published. Sometimes we run another notice informing the public that, one, this is fake. But in addition, behind the scenes, every time we learn of any misreporting by a journalist, we invite the media house, we invite the individual journalists, we engage them, and sometimes I've come up to correct the story, but also sometimes I've come up and say, okay, look, we reported this because we had this set of facts. Now that we've learned about the other side of the story, let's do rebroadcast this story in a more balanced way. So it's not true that we've succeeded in dealing with the obscenity but failed on fake news. We are doing a lot together. Right. And the main issue is we are trying to build the capacity of our journalists.
Thank you. We
because
have a caller.
When a journalist is properly trained, okay, we can listen to the caller first.
UBC?
Yes, I'm on.
You're live?
Yeah, Juma in the top up, eh?
Okay, in seconds, sir?
Yes. Let NEMA go back to their first ethic, their policy, which governs their work to be efficient enough with the community. Okay. Let them go back to that, so that we go off from the corruption side.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. So, okay. NEMA, someone says in the same message that we had NEMA and so many others, but what happened to them, we no longer hear about them, and we have lost a lot in terms of forest cover and also the wetlands. I'll finish on that point, Dr. Weiss, as I go back to Dr. Litho and Dennis later. But also, if you can allow me also have this caller. UBC?
Hello.
UBC?
UBC, thank you, Amon, for the discussion.
Welcome, sir. Your name and where you're calling us from?
I'm called Tony. I'm calling from Tinda.
Okay.
Yes, my issue is there are two issues. I'm sorry that I called in late. I was trying to call, but the phone was very busy.
All right.
Yes, my issue about journalism is I think today we are having so many journalists that have become into activists. We are not having a proper discussion when it comes to national issues. Let's say environment, when someone come to you, when they show us things happening with wetlands or someone have encroached a wetland, they show us one side. They don't show us the broad light of the picture. Secondly is about false news. Recently I've seen an increase in newspapers where a newspaper bring out news and they spread the entire nation. Then the next day they come and put in an apology. I would want to stretch my concern on the gentleman from UCC who heads the legal and compliance. How are they going to deal with that? Because it has become a norm. Somebody publish a false information about you, and then a following day he comes up and apologizes, and business just run as normal. Thank you so much, Amon.
Welcome, Tony.
Yes.
All right. You are finishing on that point, and this caller made it clear. Put this question to you, Dr. Wesley, if you can summarize on that, but also answering that and the caller, what happened to our environmental courts and tribunals? Summary on that, and then Dr. Letho will come in.
Very much. Certainly on the issue of the environmental court, I know that is still provided for under certain policies, but it hasn't yet been implemented. And this is partly because we know that the government is again trying to work on rationalization. So we know that so many tribunals, there are so many institutions that the laws provide for, but the government is also trying to see how best can we utilize the existing infrastructure to serve our people better without spending a lot of money. So maybe that's one of the reasons why the environmental court hasn't yet kicked off. But maybe in the future, inshallah, we'll see the environmental court.
Tony raises character assassination, and later on someone puts an apology, but when my business has
already been affected. Before I get to that point, I just want to emphasize on the issue of NEMA and the other environmental bodies also coming out strongly to do their work. I feel like, yes, also as a Ugandan, that other actors in environmental protection ecosystem need to be seen more in the media, sensitizing the public, but also utilizing the available platforms to make people aware that these environmental breaches shouldn't go unanswered. So because of that, I think NEMA, UA, NFA, Minister of Environment, they need to utilize the available infrastructure to sensitize the masses and to also reprimand those that do breach the environmental standards. But then also on the issue of people publish fake news and then later on they come and apologize. It is true that many times the journalists could have published a story out of maybe a mistake of fact. So it is acceptable in journalism that if somebody has made a mistake, it's honorable for them to come up and apologize. And most times to the person that have apologized is an admission of error. Okay. So if you feel the apology has not done enough damage control on your part, you can even choose to, for example, sue them for defamation if you can prove damages or clear loss suffered. But also under the new law, the Computer Misuse Amendment Act of 2022, actually if somebody publishes that information, if you can prove that it was malicious, you can even complain to police and police can investigate and even prosecute that person for malicious publication of information, which is a very serious offense under the Computer Misuse Law, Misuse Act. So, but again, as regulators, we keep encouraging the public that whenever you suffer media breaches, do not so much invoke the criminal aspects before you've utilized the professional routes available for you to get redress.
Thank you, Dr. Waitho. Dr. Litho.
I will start basically cutting across many issues raised. I would just like to emphasize that freedom of the press, like any other freedom, is not absolute. So while it is a fundamental right, crucial for democracy and promotion of so many things, there are limitations and we should be responsible as journalists. So we should pay attention to the legal restrictions and respect those as we perform our duty. My colleague just talked about defamation and libel. Some of us just incite violence, and this is very, very prominent online. We promote hate speech. We abuse privacy and claim to be practicing journalism. And like my colleague Watasa said, the issue about capacity building, but I like the term where he talked about, what do you call them? The mercenary journalists. And we see this sometimes associated with the aspect of resources. And to the issue you raised earlier, should journalists benefit from government programs like PDM, the Parish Development Model? And to me, journalists play a crucial role in informing the public and holding government accountable. So it is essential for them to have access to resources and support. However, the extent to which they should be involved in these processes needs to be specific, because what is the program objective, what is the eligibility criteria, and especially what is the potential impact on a journalist's integrity and independence. But of course, them being citizens like all of us should be supported as long as they're transparent and fair in how they do business. And yes, being a journalist or a professional in a certain area does not take away your right to citizenship and the benefits that come from it, as long as you're operating within the legal provisions.
Interesting. Dennis Katunji, if you can sum it all, I know your mandate is to effectively facilitate communication of government policies and programs and projects to public through media. And now we're talking about the same media. We are in your docket. And we're talking about also environment, which also impacts all of us, not only in Uganda, but what happens in Ethiopia, Mogadishu, and elsewhere affects one person in Uganda in one way or the other. Dennis?
Thank you. In my opening remarks, I said that I talked about the core principles of journalism. This being World Press Day, let me highlight them again, because I am sure that if we followed those up, I like to shine a torch on ourselves as practicing journalists. There are core principles, and if we followed them, we will, in the first place, we would discard that term they put on us, Gambo, these degrading remarks. This is a profession, and it has core principles. And the first one is truth and accuracy. Journalists cannot always guarantee truth, but getting the facts right is a cardinal principle of journalism. We should always strive for accuracy, give all the relevant facts we have, and ensure that we have checked. And where we cannot corroborate information, we should say so. The second one is independence. Journalists must be independent voices. We should not act formally or informally on behalf of special interests, whether they are political, corporate, or cultural. We should, in fact, in other places, journalists declare their interests. The other one is fairness and impartiality. Most stories have at least two sides. While there is no obligation to present every side in every piece or story, there should be balance, and you should add context. So objectivity is not always possible and may not always be desirable in the face of, for example, brutality, inhumanity, or what. But impartial reporting builds trust and confidence. Then humanity. Journalists should not harm. We should publish or broadcast. What we publish or broadcast should not be harmful, either to our country or to ourselves. Then accountability. A sure sign of professionalism and responsible journalism is the ability to hold ourselves accountable. I am sure that if we really followed these tenets, we would go a long way. Even what the gentleman was mentioning here, those labor laws, it is true that if you have been damaged to a certain extent, an apology may not be enough, and you can take the matter before courts of law. There is recourse. So all in all, I would think that we have a lot to do within ourselves as professional journalists, and that would really put us on another level, on a platform where the critiquing is less and the labels are not that derogatory.
Time is not on our side. I will request you, Deputy Executive Director, to give us your concluding remarks or parting shots.
My concluding remarks are that we should recognize that this profession, journalism, is critical, is important to democracy, to all aspects of our lives, and we should look at journalists, especially those who work within the rules, as professionals, not as those words I was mentioning earlier. So we should support the profession.
Interesting. In the same spirit, I would request Dr. Patricia K. Litho to give us your parting shots.
Parting shots, we should promote responsible journalism as we commemorate the World Press Freedom Day. We should be responsible, seek to be professional, and like my colleagues have said, there's an effort to streamline and professionalize the trade. If you want to stay in this space, get trained, learn the tools of the trade, learn what professional journalism means, learn the laws and policies that govern the practice. That way you continue to enjoy the space of communication and information management. And like we know, we have very few people focusing really on environmental journalism for so many reasons. So these are some of the areas that we can pay attention to and broaden our scope as we specialize more. And we shouldn't forget our agenda-setting role as journalists to
but
ensure...
also calling women to join the cause, because we still have few women that are in this fight than we expected.
Oh yes, women definitely. We must pay attention to the role of women, not only as the most affected when it comes to environmental degradation, but also as key players in promoting the stories that make a difference. Women as journalists, also going into environmental journalists and creating awareness. That way there is access. And I can guarantee that through Uganda Media Women's Association, we've got Mama Radio and other platforms online where we can continue to promote and create awareness on the environment and the three aspects of the environment that I mentioned earlier, that is climate change, biodiversity loss, and air pollution. Thank you.
Most welcome, Dr. Litho. Allow me go back to you, Dr. Waiswa, your parting shots.
Thank you very much. For me, I can only thank the listeners for giving us time to follow this conversation. I call upon everybody, consumers of media services, providers of media services, journalists. Let us all work towards building this country. Communication infrastructure are supposed to be utilized for the good of the nation. So whatever role you play, you work every day to build society, to create harmony, not to disunite people and be responsible for trouble in our society. If we all work towards achieving those objectives, I'm sure as regulators, UCC, on behalf of government and everybody, will be very happy and will not see any clash between UCC and the media, because at the end of the day, we are all scoring in the same goal for the good of our people. I thank you.
Interesting. Dr. Christopher Wanga.
Yes, thanks very much, Comrade Amon Butega. My appeal is really for the government to appreciate that the media is the fourth estate. And at the same time also, people in the media should really set a media program, a media agenda, which encompasses the needs of the society, the realities of the society, the important global trends as they move. UPC, we suffered for a very long time when our message was not coming out positively, and you find the younger generation which can associate us to a lot of negativity. I'm making a direct appeal to the media houses to reach out to UPC people to bring up a proper perspective, because that is nation building, and you cannot build a nation when one section is suffering. We are happy that now we are in a multi-party dispensation. let the media houses understand that it is a multipartism driving the country, and at the end of the day, it is nation building. These other issues like environmental challenges can be handled in that context, but we should not lag behind. I'm so much pained when I see advanced residential areas like Kololo, Muyenga. When you go back at the houses, people are using firewood, people are using charcoal. Okay, I'm not saying that it is right. Even in the village, it is not right. We need really to find a formula, and this is the task I'm giving the media on such an important day of a crisis, environmental crisis. And this environmental crisis registered itself as we entered this room. My colleague there complained about insufficient air in the room. You had to come up and you put up a gadget which improved the situation. Let us become more revolutionary like Sankara, who pushed hard his people in Burkina Faso to start planting trees. Let us emulate Wangai Mothari, a Kenyani lady, who even stood firm and opposed Moi, that Moi don't talk here that you want to erase a park and you put up a super hotel. I'm ready to mobilize 1 million march. And the lady indeed was very bold and took on Moi. And then the lady went on with the planting spree. If they put it revolutionary, that each home where there is space, every beginning of the year and mid-year and towards the end of the year we plant 1 tree, we would be happy. Like now the initiative I'm seeing in Kampala with this type of plants which have been planted. Of course, there is a lot which is going wasted. We need to come up again and replant. When we mind about our environment, we mind about our lives. And that's why there is a saying, water is life and life is water. If you have the capacity of protecting, preserving your water, you are home and dry. But don't forget, Dr. Butterus Ghali, when he was a foreign minister of Egypt, he said modern wars are not going to be waged. So Uganda, you are endowed. You have one of the biggest natural lakes, one of the biggest, longest rivers. But we are fumbling. We are destroying the catchment areas. And this is our treasure. It goes beyond a journalist. It becomes a serious national question. What are we doing to preserve our environment? Okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Doctor. Bana Commissioner Moses Watasa, if you can sum it all, your parting shots on this edition.
Thank you again, Amon and the rest of Team UBC for hosting us today to what has been a very insightful conversation, which I hope our listeners out there have benefited from. As a ministry responsible for media on behalf of government, we really fully appreciate ourselves with the World Press Freedom Day, and we reiterate our congratulations to our fourth estate for reaching yet another milestone. We are committing ourselves to maintaining a free, like I've said, a free, vibrant, but also responsible media. Our doors are open. I think Council Dr. Waiso has alluded to this. We engage with the media all the time. The likes of the Media Sector Working Group, I've talked about that. We've met the Editors Guild, the NAB, National Association of Broadcasters. In fact, this one, Honorable Minister is the patron of NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters around the country, the likes of RUBA, Rural Broadcasters Association, even the one who my friend here heads the UMA. We believe that when we talk to each other, we are going to have a media that works for our country. So our doors remain open. In fact, Honorable Chris Bariomunsi says for him, he has no door, that he plucked out the doors. So he has no door to open because he removed it. the imagery is that he's always available. So our political leadership is available, even ourselves at the technical level. Let's keep working. There's so much we've done, but there's also so much we need to do with the trainers like Dr. Patricia here, with the regulators, political parties. I'm happy to see UPCs here because this our government, current government, is about inclusion and the cross-pollinating of ideas. So, and the media center, which is our hub for continuous engagement with the media. So, some of the challenges notwithstanding, the outlook is very good for media freedoms in Uganda now and for the future. I want to thank you.
Most welcome, and that brings us to the end of our discussion today on today's edition UBC Ground Zero. I'm glad that you all recognized, appreciated, and also recommended on how journalists play a vital role in environmental protection through their reporting, investigation, and advocacy. And we really help a lot in sport on shining a spotlight on environmental issues, and journalists keep on doing that very noble role to change the world that we want altogether. And I believe that we are facing a number of challenges that some have tackled in this edition, but I know there are always a way to make sure that we go through and make sure that we bring that genuine and professional content to the people that have given us their audience. I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for making it a point to come through and educate, empower, and inform the people of Uganda on this edition of UBC Ground Zero on our 5 radio stations. And I want to thank you in a special way, Dr. Patricia K. Litho, for coming through.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Dennis Katunji, Deputy Executive Director, Uganda Media Center, for making it a point to come to this edition.
Much obliged.
I want to, in the special way, also to thank you, Commissioner Moses Watatha, making it a point to come through.
Always a pleasure to be here at UBC. Thanks.
Dr. Rwanga, you have always been part of us, and we can't take that for granted.
Indeed, you are welcome. We are servants of the people. We shall always be available.
Interesting.
Yes.
And also a privilege and honor to have had the opportunity to have you, Dr. Wais Salman, coming from UCC.
Thank you very much for hosting us, and we commit to always be available to support efforts to make our sector better.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. UBC Butebo in Eastern Uganda listener, and Western Nile in Arua, Magic 100 FM in Kampala, UBC Radio in Kampala, and Voice of Bundubujo that have been part of us from the time we started this edition up to this time that we have to end here. For God and my country, I'm Peire Amon Ortega. Allow me now to sign out.
That was Ground Zero Season 2, a production of Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, UBC, inspiring Uganda. It's hot.
We passed it. We didn't know exactly what the problem was on the ground. There is no pretending about the effect of this thing. There's no pretending about it. Nobody should. It's a problem.
It's balanced.
This is not the stage at which you start planning to tax a commodity like coffee, especially from down there.
It's intellectually engaging.
The Constitution provides that the land must be registered under the customary tenure system, which is one of those that's recognized by